Hey, Matt. Oh, bruh, it's Friday. You know what day it is. We get to talk about music. I'm ready. I got my bae on my shirt. Elvira, she's ready. And I hope you're ready behind the camera. And I hope you guys are ready. I am your humble host, Nic Rattlehead. Behind the camera, who do I have?
Matthew the Graph.
I'm not calling you Matt. I'm not using... Matt the Graph is behind the camera, and we would like to collectively welcome you to Aftershock Reviews, a place where you can get your weekly dose of offbeat but still insanely dope music. And Matt, oh boy, this week we got a doozy. I've been waiting to talk about this album for 2 weeks. 2 full-blown weeks, and now I get my chance. Matt, this band is called Gods and Punks, and the name of this album is called Enter the Ceremony of Damnation. Matt, it's psychedelic rock, it's occult rock, it's stoner metal, and classic rock and blues all meshed together, right? And it sounds like it should be just a cluster, right? Like something that should not work, if that makes sense. Well, it should, but it sounds like something that might necessarily be a little bit too offbeat. But Matt, I kid you not, it's an album that I'm a little upset that I didn't know about last year, because this album came out in 2018. Yet again, we're still trudging on that path, trying to make sure we clean up albums we missed, and it came out in December of last year. So this album is the third album in a series of, 3, and they call it their Voyage series. So I'm trying to wrestle with trying to figure out what the overarching story of this album is, because apparently there is a narrative, right? And each episode, we'll call it, has three tracks on it. And then this third one, which we're talking about today, Ceremony of Damnation, has a grand total of 8 tracks. So it's pretty much taking what works from the first 2, we'll call them EPs, and then puts them together and then brings the narrative, whatever it might be, together as well. But Matt, what I can't tell you so far as narration is concerned, I can rant and rave about is their musicality. Matt, from the opening track, which is an instrumental called The Summoning, Matt, they had me. And the thing about it is, it's drenched in reverb, and it's drenched in pedal effects. And I don't know if there's a thin layer of fuzz or distortion or whatever they're using in order to create distance between you and the music and you and the vocalist. But Matt, it works. It creates this great, intoxicating, hypnotizing atmosphere, right? And then, Matt, you know I'm a big fan of groove. Huge fan of groove. And this band just relies on Mr. Bassman. Now, everybody has equal opportunities to shine on multiple tracks, whether you're the guitarist and we're looking at tracks like, let's see, Stop the Clocks, right? Or you're the drummer and we're looking at tracks like Blood Moon Sky. But Matt, Mr. Bassman, shines like the evening sun on The Summoning, right? Because he brings the whole album in. After what we have is like a little bit of long, drawn out, fuzzed out wind, and then he just seamlessly comes in as he rides that wind and comes in with this beautiful intro. It's beautiful, honest and truly, and you really don't necessarily expect to say that much about like doom metal albums, or because this also has a fair amount of doom metal on it. It is surprisingly heavy. And as it goes from The Summoning, it goes to the actual real track called Welcome to the Ceremony. Matt, dude. So first off, it's brought in by this priest, right? So it sounds like a priest, and he's talking to this coven, and he's talking about how there should be a distinct level of blasphemy and profaneness before a ceremony, right? So I'm guessing this is also feeding into the narrative of the Voyage series, but it is the music that steals the entire show, because what they do is they have a great knack of crafting these thick riffs, drenched in reds and pinks and purples. So it's tickling all of your Vanilla Fudge / Hawkwind feet and notes, right? It's touching all of those cool psychedelic basses, but while it's still having these great blues riffs, right? And then the chunkiness of that bass guitar. Because the kick drum also, Matt, is an unsung hero as well, right? Because he does a great job of making it sound like, I'm trying to come up with some illustration, but Matt, it literally pulsates in your chest as you listen to these tracks, especially tracks like The Gear Lord. Matt. So The Gear Lord's a doom metal track. The Gear Lord's a doom metal track. It's a full-blown doom metal track, right? I'm telling you, the way this rhythm section works together in order to create this groove and to create this sense of overarching dread as the vocalist wails and howls. And let me say something about this vocalist too. This vocalist, and I guess we've been in this little bit of a series of vocalists being able to wail over very dark and very menacing instrumentation, right? This is no different, but I think, Matt, we've actually hit the pinnacle. This guy, and the thing is, he's almost a little bit out of tune, and then sometimes off beat. So it's like a Chino Moreno type of thing, right? But taken to a completely different level. And somehow, yet again, just like Chino for the Deftones, it works, right? Because he stands out, right? He stands out just like the rest of the band members do, but he doesn't necessarily, he's not overbearing. And he doesn't take away from the rest of the music, right? To the point where you're listening to him, you're like, why does this sound the way that it does? If anything, he does a great job of adding to it. His shrill wails adds to the dread. His shrill wails add to the mystery, add to the atmosphere, add to the ambiance of a lot of these tracks. And there is a song called Transparent Chains. Now, Matt, it has a great groove as it comes in. And then now this vocalist, it's like he's singing, almost whispering from his stomach at this point, and there's a female accompaniment. Like she's singing a duet right along there with them as they're shot back in the mix. And like I said, the sense of atmosphere and the sense of distance and how cavernous this album feels, it is disorienting, which adds to the psychedelia element of this album, right? And I kid you not, Matt, like I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't smoke. Don't drink, don't smoke. I don't do anything else like that, but I feel like at this point, listening to this album, I feel like I'm missing out on something by not doing some type of drug, like not smoking weed and getting high as I possibly can and then listening to this album, which, you know, also is a part of psychedelia, right? That's you get high, you listen to this music, or you get some acid and you go on a trip and then you listen to the music and the music takes you to another place which you might not necessarily go while you're sober or while you're clean, right? And it's to the point where it's just kind of like, it makes you wonder. I wouldn't do it, of course, and nothing against anybody who does, but I wouldn't do it. But the thing about it is, it makes me wonder what I'm missing out on, if that makes sense, right? Like, he's smiling now, but because this album is so different, it is so left field with the way that it approaches, like, because it's giving all sorts of nods, like I said, to blues, right? And it's more of a Delta type of blues, right? So it is more menacing. So, because, you know, like Delta blues, there's a sense of dread, right? There's a sense of, there's an ominous tone to that, like Sondhaus and Robert Johnson and things of that nature. But there is a great sense of groove to it as well, right? The doom metal aspects, how big and thick and sludgy a lot of these riffs are, right? And then the stoner aspect, like I said, it's clearly there. The psychedelic aspect is clearly there. Matt, this is a really, really interesting album. This is a really, really good album, from the great guitar solos to the great guitar licks to the great guitar riffs. Matt, the drum fills, ghost notes that the drummer is just ever so playfully just sitting here and there. Like I said, in tracks like The Gear Lord, he's just going like, oh, here's a cool little drum fill, which you might not necessarily catch because you're listening to the vocalist, or you might not necessarily catch because you're getting caught up in this really cool riff, right? And when you go back and you listen to it, I keep finding different things about this album that catch my attention, make me go like, yo, that's mad dope. Play it again. You know what I mean? Like, let's just run it again. Matt, like, I kid you not, there's been a lot of albums that have been starting to come out lately, like Osarium's new album, Death Metal, signed to $20 spin. You should check them out. Living Tomb is what it's called. But this literally took a hold of my ear, and I keep unwrapping it and finding different layers that just make it even more intriguing to me. To the point where it's like, yo, if it keeps up, you might just have to make an exception to your 2019 year-end list and be like, yo, I know it came out in 2018, but it came out at the tail end of 2018. If the Grammys can make an album of the year that came out a year and a half before the Grammys, I can do this. You see what I mean? And it's shaping up to be that way. This is a great album. A great, 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 great album. Let me say it again. Gods and Punks. Enter the Ceremony of Damnation. Check this out. It will, I promise you, right before we hit like the melee of metal albums and the melee of rock albums, this is gonna probably not even just hold you over, but keep your ear throughout the duration of 2019. Also, like I said before, check out Osarium's album, The Living Tomb, out now on $20 spin. I have been your host, Nic Rattlehead. This is Bay Elvira. That guy behind the camera, my mans with the master plans, 100 grand, is...
Matt the Graph.
Oh, okay, all right, sure. Not the graph. There you go. Thank you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well, so you'll be notified every time we drop a review. Also, hit the bell as well. You want to make sure you hit that notification as well. And then also, you can follow us here on all social media platforms, and we will holla at you later. Peace.